Hey friends, it's FiveTwo Week. Bill Woolsey here, FiveTwo Network. So good to see you, and thank you again for being a part of this ministry. Today, I have the privilege and the honor of being with the executive director of the Luke Clinic out of Detroit and Flint, Michigan. This is a ministry that we have been a part of since its beginning. And so, Penny Armbruster, so glad to see you, and thank you so much for being a part of us today.
Oh, it's a pleasure. We run into each other infrequently, and it's always good when we do. Thank you, Bill.
And for those of you listening, those of you watching, you're gonna enjoy this in large part because Penny is just a joy to listen to. She's got great stories, but she also has this beautiful accent that just, all of us American-born people, we enjoy listening to her. And if you ever follow her on Facebook, you'll see that she always has some great stories to tell as well, along with the Luke Clinic. Penny, so you're sitting at your home office today, and you're situated kind of between Luke or between FiveTwo. What am I saying? Between Flint and Detroit, right?
Yes. So we have an administrative office in Whitmore Lake where our core staff work, but really we're on the road a lot because we have a static clinic in Flint, a static clinic in Detroit, and then we send out our mobile asset, our mother and baby unit, twice a week to be able to go and visit patients in situ.
In situ means, I'm sorry.
At their home. I mean,
okay.
It's what's best for the patient. So it can be at their home on the curb. It can be meeting at a McDonald's if we want to do patient education and not comfortable with us coming into their home. It can be a church parking lot. If somebody has a minimum wage job, their boss doesn't really have a lot of interest in giving them 2 or 3 hours off for an ultrasound. So we will take the mobile asset, park it outside McDonald's. When they get their half-hour lunch break, they'll come outside, do all their antenatal testing, and then head back into work. So it's really there to meet whatever need the patient has.
That is awesome. That's awesome. So Penny, obviously you've been with the Luke Clinic since the beginning. So could you give our listeners, our watchers, a little bit of, kind of starting to where you are now? Give us some history and give us some of the backstory.
Sure. Well, as you're aware, our founder went through your training, as did some of our key stakeholders and board members. And originally, we were just struck by the significantly high infant mortality rate in Detroit. And we just kept thinking it's got to be on God's heart that babies are dying needlessly. And I think part of what your training brings to the table is the idea that you're constantly evaluating. So initially we thought, oh, it's prenatal care and it's providing quality prenatal care, making it accessible, making it affordable. For us, affordable meant free. We were never going to be charging. And we wanted to make it relationship-based. But we had our first patient walk in the room, and she was probably 3 weeks from delivery. And we realized very soon it's not always providing 9 months of care. And so if you're trying to build a relationship and somebody's coming in the last trimester, that was like immediately a shift. And we were very excited to tell that patient, come back in 2 weeks' time for your next appointment, and we're going to throw you a baby shower, because we had this idea to reward patients with coming by getting a baby shower. And yet her second appointment was going to be a baby shower. And it was a little over decorated and overdone because it was our first one, but we were kind of waiting with bated breath. And when she walked in the room, she had her best dress on. But as she got closer, we realized she had a black eye, a split lip, and a very, very bruised throat with finger marks where her partner had literally tried to kill her the day before. And she had been in the ER all night, but she had discharged herself from the ER, gone home and put her dress on. She couldn't speak because her vocal cords were damaged. But she said, she whispered that nothing was going to make her miss her shower. And I think that just spoke volumes, that it's not just about medical care. It really is about the circumstances of our patients. Many of them come to us and they're not feeling safe. 80% of them have experienced interpersonal violence during their pregnancy. We have a really high statistic of homelessness, couch surfing, food insecurity. And really, when you're a woman, taking care of yourself is really the the last thing you're going to do. If you don't know where you're sleeping that night or what you're feeding your children, that takes priority over your prenatal care. So over time, as we began to understand our patients and get a better idea of what's going on, we began to realize it's not just prenatal care. And so extending the wraparound services and the partnerships with other agencies to be able to address these barriers to getting good care, as well as what we do in clinic, became important. We initially thought it was going to be a mobile clinic that we were going to take from A to B, but we were inundated and we became a destination clinic. And so we began to change that model from a large mobile RV where we thought we'd be able to provide care to a small ambulance that had all the equipment we need, that we could be much more responsive and take out onto the streets of Detroit. The volume was just too great for a small mobile asset. So it's evolved, it's grown. God has opened doors and partnerships for us. 5 years in, we now have statistical outcomes that really just speak volumes. And I think that's so God, that he can take that little mustard seed of a clinic and he can give it birth outcomes that are so significant, the way we measure birth outcomes, which is premature delivery and low birth weight. And we have such good outcomes in those two areas. God gives us a platform in the city of Detroit to just speak and to share what we've learned and to write articles and publish articles. And so I remember
when you say, just for those of us who are as not, in tune with what you're doing or the area that you serve in, when you say good outcomes or whatever, what does that literally mean?
So we want to take a baby to term. We don't want that baby to deliver early, and we want that baby to be a healthy weight.
Okay.
And typically when you're looking at infant mortality, you're looking at premature delivery and low birth weight. So those are two key sort of measurements that you can show success. What we have in our clinic is the majority, I would say 60% of our patients are considered medically high risk. And so we've got majority high risk patients, but we've got some of the best birth outcomes in Detroit.
Wow.
And to me, that is, only God can do that. It gives us such a voice and an ability to speak. And I remember this tiny little voice when we were doing our original visioning and planning, that I felt like God told me, you need to change the way healthcare is delivered in Detroit. And I didn't even say it out loud to the rest of the team because it seemed unimaginable. But those birth outcomes did give us the opportunity to present to the Detroit Medical Center board. As a result of that presentation, they made some policy changes. We've been able to publish articles, speak at conferences.
You've also received grants and dollars from other organizations who are believing in what you're doing.
Yes, we have. There are some phenomenal foundations. I think two of the big ones for us would be the CVS Foundation and the Blue Cross Blue Shield Foundation.
Okay.
Right now, 5 years in, it's a perfect storm in that all around us, everybody everywhere on every level is realizing that I can't pin it down to one particular expression, but really maternal and infant health is the buzzword of the moment. So all of a sudden, if you're working on the social determinants of health, the things that get in the way of somebody getting healthcare and the kind of healthcare they receive and the opportunities they have to maintain a healthy pregnancy, that's like on everybody's level right now. So there's money available. And if you can,
when you say the perfect storm, you're kind of saying it's something I've used in a good way in our own ministry. You're really, God's put you at the right place in the right time, where culturally people are even more valuing what it is you're doing.
Yes, it's hit a point where it's on everybody's radar. But to access that money, it's like a chicken and an egg. You have to show results to be able to access that money. So the perfect storm is we're 5 years in, we've got results, and all of a sudden everybody else is like, wow, what you're talking about is what we want to see.
Very, very cool. So give us some idea. Again, you started, at and I'm trying to remember, I apologize, but the church downtown Detroit.
So,
You started there, and now you have, what led you to Flint, and what are some of the stats that you're now seeing and how you've grown from that first lady who walked in to where you are today?
So originally when we started with your FiveTwo program, you suggested a minimum viable prototype, trying what we wanted to see how it worked, see if it would stick. And so there was a church
and it
that
stuck, by the way, right?
Oh yeah, it really did. Yes, there was a storefront church in Detroit called Family of God that was ministering to the homeless and to addicts and to sex workers, and they just had this big old church that they had purchased with a lot of room in it, and they just said, "Hey, you come and share, come and build out 2 rooms. Let's give it a try." Well, I think Pastor Jim and Pastor Tyler, I don't know if they regret that, but we've pretty much taken over that building now, because we have exam rooms in the communion closet, in the library. We take over every single piece of space that there is. And I think we probably
fantastic.
15 patients in the first quarter. Okay. And right now we're up to about 250 patients a year right now.
Wow. Wow.
Volume,
and that's just in the Detroit location?
That's just in the Detroit location. Okay. And sometimes we have to really not take new patients because volume-wise, we run a 4-hour clinic. We have 4 exam rooms. I would say on average, we have 4 to 6 doctors. And we can get through 40 to 50 patients in that time. And that's a lot, because we don't want to revert to the hospital setting of 12 minutes a patient. We want a patient to have as long as she needs. And so there are times that we have had to be creative as far as limiting the number of patients. One of the positives of the pandemic is it helped us really heavily invest in virtual technology and virtual visits. So now patients that aren't high risk, that need a quick check-in, we've been able to send them home with scales and a blood pressure cuff and a baby Doppler. And we have midwives that do virtual visits over the internet. So that's been another way we've been able to continue to take patients. But I think word was getting around, and we were invited to come up and talk with the Flint Tri-Circuit of the Lutheran Church. And they said, look, we see what you're doing in Detroit. We have a horrible infant mortality rate in Flint. We have a lot of the same social determinants and struggles up here. We really want to encourage you to come, and we are going to offer to underwrite a Start New loan from the Michigan District if you come. And we immediately partnered with Franklin Avenue Mission and Pastor Christian Jones. We actually have a different model there in that we have a turnkey clinic. He gave us a huge old classroom, which we were managed to turn into a 6-room clinic. And it's just beautiful. We walk in, we open the door, and we're ready to rock and roll. Whereas with Detroit, we still set up every week from scratch. But nonetheless, I think Flint is similar but different. We realized with our first half dozen patients, it was going to be a very different kind of clinic with different problems and a different demographic. And I don't want to generalize, because to be honest, the first 6 months should not really define it. We shouldn't be able to walk into a city code and define it. But the first 6 months have shown us that we're dealing with a lot more addiction. And that's not really the pattern for us in Detroit typically. And so we've definitely had to bring in more senior doctors to oversee our patient care and make sure that we get some experience. Random side-by-side story, but I love the way God works. I got a call from the director of Concordia Ann Arbor's nursing program, Dr. Cindy Fensky. And she said, I know this young man, he graduated from Concordia, has this beautiful ministry in Detroit serving the homeless at night, and he has no vehicle. Is there anything you could do to help? And I was like, well, I have an ambulance that I use in the day. How cool would it be if we lent it to him at night? The board agreed. We share the ambulance with him. It's taken our ministry in Detroit in a completely different area. He serves the chronic, permanent homeless population. He's running into pregnant women. He's bringing them to clinic. Ladies in that situation, it's not very easy for them to keep regular appointments. A lot of them are trafficked. A lot of them are sex workers. A lot of them are addicts. But it's been a beautiful opportunity. I think another FiveTwo ministry was Deb Ellinger's Ellie's house.
Yeah, right. Yeah,
we started to partner with Deb and learn about how to work with trafficked women. And we now send the ambulance out at night, and they can actually take care of our ladies, and we can share prescriptions and treatment plans. Never in a million years would I have thought that's where God would take us. But it's just amazing to me that when he opens the door, we walk through it. So now we have this huge homeless ministry and pregnancy care for homeless women, as well as Flint and Detroit.
Well, and I just want to, for those of you who are listening and watching, to point out some of the principles that we really work hard to have teams like Penny's listen to and apply. The biggest one, first of all, is who you're serving, your customer, and listen to them, learn from them. And you'll note in her story how they switched. They started to realize there were some other things that were holistically needed there if they were going to care for this woman as Jesus would have. You also see and you hear a huge flexibility. So they're very open to where God is leading, and a huge partnership area there, that they're understanding their partners here and how can they utilize those partners. And then also another one that, you know, for you going through our ministry, there's this channels. In other words, how are they going to receive the care or whatever it is that you're trying to provide? And you heard her talk about the, you know, the larger RV, the smaller unit. They've got static units, you know, they come to where the person is, all that kind of thing. So they're wisely listening to that and saying what's going to work. But also, I wanted you all to hear she's 5 years in. Okay. So they did not start this way, but they have had this wonderful mentality of now, how can we follow God in this whole thing? So Penny, we for about another 5 minutes here, give us some stats, you know, help our listeners hear some of the things that's happening through your ministry.
Sure. So initially we were providing prenatal care, but another response we had to that first mom who came in so late in her pregnancy, really, when you want to share the gospel with somebody, we recognize there's a need for relationship for that. And we recognize there's a need for relationship in a care setting. And when somebody's coming in so quickly before their delivery, and we began to see there wasn't a lot of mentoring, there wasn't a lot of sharing of information in families. If you ask them, do you know anyone who's married? Do you know anyone who's breastfed their children? It was just no every time. So we added in 12 months of infant care. Again, completely different to prenatal care. So bringing in pediatricians, addressing the first 12 months of life. This year, we've just put in a huge education program where we're specifically addressing the role of trauma. We're looking at how trauma affects women in their pregnancies and their parenting. We're looking at basic parenting classes for how to feed your baby, how to bathe your baby, how to sleep.
Wow.
So we've added in a huge education portion. And I mean, to me, that's one of the most exciting things, is that we have a passion and a vision, but it's really God's ministry. And I really believe he opened doors where he wants us to go. And I believe he has us recognize that we're not doing everything in our own strength. I don't know if I represent you accurately, Bill, but I always say, to me, FiveTwo means that the little boy's lunch was not in the church. It was in the community. Right.
That's
so
exactly
I'm
right.
very excited to not reinvent the wheel and partner in the community whenever I can. So those are really my two ways of growing, is one is seeing where God opens the door, and two, who already knows what they're doing and is an expert and is willing to partner with us, and we can share. Amen. So I think we've served over 600 women. We've delivered over 250 babies from till, I think, October last year. Like I said, we've got very high risk patients, very high need patients. We initially thought that we'd refer high risk patients to a high risk clinic at the hospital, but we found the same reasons they don't go to care is the same reasons they didn't want to go to a high risk doctor. They didn't feel listened to or cared for. So our model again switched to include a much more high risk level of care. I tell everyone when they visit, it's like a MASH unit, a mobile hospital. You set it up, you clean everything, it's ready to rock and roll. But when you open the door, you never know what's coming in. And I think for some people in ministry, that could be tiring, that you never feel like you've quite nailed it. But for me, it's really exciting.
Right.
It's different all the time. We partner with very innovative people who embrace that change, people who are really, when you have so many volunteers who are highly skilled, like doctors and technicians, who are leaving a 12-hour shift and coming to work with you out of passion and excitement. We're harnessing that because we're passionate and excited too, and we want to make a difference. And together that puts us in a position where we're all pulling on the same team. And so it's very innovative. It's very entrepreneurial. If you want Steady Freddy, it's not Steady Freddy, but you get to see God work on a daily basis. And I just got so many stories I couldn't even begin to tell you. But I think of a wonderful girl, Carlita, who gave us permission to share her story. And when we met Carlita, she was not pregnant by choice, which is something that's hard for most of us to understand, Bill. But in this scenario, there's a lot of sexual coercion. That might be rape, that might be guilting, that might be threatening, but a lot of the girls are not pregnant by choice. And then after they've gotten pregnant, the boyfriends often disappear. So they're suddenly alone. And Carlita was really open. She was a Christian, but she was really open to the strengthening of her faith. And every time she came, she wanted to talk and grow. And she was just a pleasure to look after. But one night she called us in the middle of the night and said that her boyfriend was trying to kill her and she was hiding in a locked closet. And we were able to send somebody to get her, and we called 911. We were able to get her. We were bringing her to a shelter, but there wasn't a shelter for at least 2 hours away that had a space that night. So our partner doctors at the hospital were able to get her into the hospital for social reasons, hold her there for a couple of days. She ended up delivering less than a week later. And she has just, she's been a joy. We partnered with a wonderful Catholic mother's home. Carlita was able, with their support, to get her GED, and she's now in nursing school, and she wants to come back to the country. And she's a wonderful mom. Her little girl's called Majesty. And, you know, we've had many, many families who come to us who want to have faith conversations, like the majority, I would say. The vast majority want to have a faith conversation, want to pray. We brought Pastor Scott on a year ago because we really wanted to invest a lot more heavily in that program. We wanted to run grief counseling. We wanted to run parenting. We wanted to look at spiritual heritage. How do you build a spiritual heritage? What does that look like? So that we're not just baptizing families, but we're talking about what does it mean to grow faith in your children, and how can we come alongside you in that program? So again, that's been a huge growth area for us. You know, initially we were sharing our faith and we were baptizing families, but we've realized that when they come, they really want to know, they really want to grow. And I think Pastor Scott and I have counseled families who've lost children, counseled families who've been experiencing major relationship struggles, and they want that counseling and they want that conversation to be in the light of faith. And so that's been an enormous growth area for us, is the resources that we've been putting into that faith side of the ministry.
Well, Penny, just listening to you, how inspiring it is, and how, again, when I said early on, it's an honor to get to help start from this idea and this concern for bringing Jesus to this particular population in a very holistic way, and how you and your board and your staff have continued to grow that, and how God's honored that, you know. And then to hear your comment, it's almost as we work with entities now and new ventures, especially in the US, especially in hard to reach areas, it really requires at times a new expression of church, you might say. It requires understanding that a number of these people are not going to be drawn into a local congregation, but they still want that kind of community, and they're still looking for Jesus. And unless we have ventures like yours that can do that and are willing to do that, they're not going to get that connection to Jesus that really their souls desire.
Bill, can I just make one quick point? That one
Sure.
thing, and I really don't think we thought about at the beginning. I would say we have attracted so many non-Christian volunteers who want to make a difference in this arena, that I would say that our patients are not our only people that we're witnessing to and that we are having life-changing conversations with. So again, I think this constantly being open to what God is bringing you and being able to just pivot.
Well, and I want to have that as our closing note, but I want to reinforce that to everybody. friends, it goes back again to what Penny said about the feeding of the 5,000. When people come to us, their immediate two issues are, where's the money going to come from, and where are the people going to come from? They're always concerned about resources. And our statement, like Penny said, is just like Jesus fed the crowd with food from the crowd, what was missing was the disciples going into the crowd, discovering the food, and being obedient to Jesus. And when Penny is, as she wraps up here and talks about her own staff are really growing, and see, what we see there is that there are people in your community who want to do what you believe Jesus is calling you to do. What they don't want to do is to have to do the whole faith thing first. And that's fine. Let's serve with them. Let's part with them and show them the gospel in action, and let the Holy Spirit work there. That is so wonderful. So those of you who are part of FiveTwo, we thank you so much for your support. Want to make sure, Penny, where can people go on the web to learn more about your ministry?
thelukeclinic.org. Really simple.
Very simple. So friends, please go and check out the lukeclinic.org. If you're looking for a ministry to support that has this passion for underserved women, especially in the Detroit, Flint, that whole region, please give generously to them. You can hear from Penny and her staff that they're just a wonderful ministry to invest in for the sake of the kingdom. So Penny, thank you so much. Thank you for being with us, and God continue to bless your ministry.
Thank you, Bill.